Yesterday was a really big news day for a lot of reasons. One of those being the Jeffrey Epstein files. Yes, it passed overwhelmingly, almost unanimously in the House, and then they pretty much just rubber stamped it in the Senate. And now we're trying to figure out where we go from here. How is it going to get released? What implications legally are there for anybody that may or may not be listed in the so-called files? And how does that affect everybody legally? Joining us on 710 KURV, we welcome back to the show from TexasDefenseFirm.com, legal expert Jeremy Rosenthal. So I imagine context is going to be very, very important, but you know the internet does not care at all about context.
Nor should they, right? Look, this is Christmas morning for conspiracy theorists. What you need to do is get all 78,000 documents of the file, or maybe it's more and maybe it's less. Hit Control F. Look for your neighbor. Look for the boss who denied you the promotion. That's what everybody in America is going to do. Is they're gonna look through the file and they're gonna see who they want to see, and they're gonna say, "See, I told you, the guy I hate the most is in here," and then we're gonna hatch a bunch of conspiracies. So yeah, this is gonna be it's gonna be some good people watching. That's for sure.
And that's what I literally expect the internet to be doing. Once these files get released, they're gonna find their favorite celebrity, right? They're gonna find. I heard some of the talk show hosts earlier. They had like a wish list of people that they were going to be looking for in the Epstein files to see. See,
Right.
yeah, just like you said, conspiracy there. See, I told you they were on the list doing this. But now
Right.
I'm curious. So let's talk about the
Yeah.
victims and some of the whistleblowers first, because that was one of the main concerns of some of the people that were reluctant to release the files outright. None of this. Well, how do I put this? In a perfect world, I guess to them that these things weren't going to be redacted in any way. Nobody was going to be protected.
hmm They can redact sensitive information, social security numbers, things like that, of victims. But the statute is very clear that embarrassment or political inconvenience or reputational harm is not grounds to redact names. So the way that the statute really reads is it's really in two parts. Part number one is what they have to turn over, and it's very broadly worded. There's about 9 different sections or categories of things that they're required to turn over, and those are broken up probably into 30 or 40 subparts. Flight logs, memoranda, legal plea deals, anything and everything, just emails, you name it. And then the second half of the statute is basically deals with the redactions and the protections, right? If there's something that's national security, they can redact it, or if there's obviously they have to redact pornography and other material like that, or if there's other visual depictions of some types of abuse, they have to redact that. But what they have to do is they've got 30 days to produce it all, and then 15 days later, they have to explain all of their redactions to Congress. So, in theory, there's really not a lot of places for folks to hide, for the Department of Justice to hide with when it comes to these documents.
Joining us on 710 KURV is Jeremy Rosenthal at TexasDefenseFirm.com, and we're talking about the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files. So let's talk. Let's talk about implications and what it takes to build a case. If this is supposed to be the end goal, right? It's not just going to be a release of names willy nilly into the wind, right? It's
Mhm.
hopefully people are going to make cases and bring people to justice in name of the victims and the whistleblowers, right?
Well, okay, so that's a great question. These documents, a lot of them have been in the possession of the government for several decades now. Um, and I'm sure the file has been evolving, right? They want all the documents surrounding his desk. They want all the documents surrounding Ghislaine Maxwell. Um, you would think and you would hope that if there was actionable information against anybody in there, that it would have been done years ago, right? So if there's new information about new things that are actionable, right? And I'm talking about closed loops. There's going to be a ton of loose ends with these things, names, dates, things like that, things that might be a lead, that might be able to get an investigation started, but you would have to get people to cooperate with you, and there's probably just a ton of leads here to follow. But if there are some of these closed loops, situations where you can prosecute that have not been prosecuted, that would be kind of disappointing, I think.
Because I imagine there's a ton of questions. For example, what if a insert celebrity here or insert CEO here shows
Mhm.
up on a flight log, but there's no evidence that anything else took place? Um,
Right.
what happens? Where do we go from here? Is it just they're
Exactly.
the victim of the public court of opinion for the rest of their life, or how does it work?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's some of the downside here to this file is probably there's going to be some folks that may get caught in the crosshairs there. But yeah, that's exactly right. So let's say you've got information that, pick a celebrity that is on the flight in 2000 and whatever. And yeah, well, we can go and interview people that we think were there. Maybe they help us, maybe they don't. Maybe we already ran this down and didn't get anywhere, right? So what happens with that? I'm sure there's a lot of folks that are nervous too about their name popping up, right? People who were in Jeffrey Epstein's sphere, that maybe were in his orbit at some point, and they're watching this file release through their fingers, and maybe they ought to. But yeah, so I think that you're going to see all the above when it comes to these things.
Would any of the Jeremy Rosenthal from TexasDefenseFirm.com joining us on 710 KURV? So where I'm coming from is, and I'm sure you are too, is that if they were going to release the files, and I think some people had concerns that if they were going to do this, it needed to be in kind of a structured way so that you could build cases and bring people to justice for the victims and for the whistleblowers and everybody, and you wouldn't be implicating people that had nothing to do with what was going on, but their names come up, who
Right.
who may have had no idea that Epstein was doing really shady things. And do they have any legal options if their name comes up and now they're the target of public slander and libel? And are they able to sue anybody because of that?
That's a great question, and the short answer is probably not. One of the reasons why is that the statute of limitations for defamation and slander are typically, in Texas at least, and I'm a Texas lawyer, but in most instances it's a year. So if somebody made a and there's also privileges for law enforcement investigations and things like that. So if I gave an interview to the FBI in 2003 and I said, "Oh, that guy is, he's a pedo and he was on Jeffrey Epstein's island," well, yes, it's defamatory if it's not true, but there's also a privilege there because I'm talking to a law enforcement officer. It would be a crime for me to say a false thing to the FBI agent, right? But from a civil standpoint, it would be much harder to sort of do that. So you're really out of time in most of these instances. So I would think it'd be very difficult to bring some sort of a defamation suit. I think you're hoping that kind of to your very first point on our call, that if somebody's name is in these files and they're innocent, that hopefully the context kind of shows that.
Like, because I'll give you an example. Imagine John Doe showing up at a grocery store and a security camera just happens to take a snapshot of him passing by Jeffrey Epstein, and that makes the internet. Does that implicate him
Right.
in anything that's ongoing? And I'm sure there's going to be instances like that, because I know there's already photos and things like that floating around that make it look like these two people were the best of friends, best of buddies, and so that obviously means, without a shadow of a doubt, this person was at the island.
Well, be prepared to be disappointed. Geraldo Rivera, right? Remember when he went into the vault? I don't think it'll be quite like that. I think there's a lot more information here, but I do think that you're going to get a lot of loose ends here. And we know Trump's name's going to show up, right? I mean, we saw leaks already, and we've seen the pictures. So, but is he and what's it going to tell us though, right? Is and in what context is it going to be? And what will it mean? And will it be overshadowed by, oh my God, I had no idea that guy was on the island, right? So some other guy that's on the island, and so you're really going to get inundated with all of this at once, and it's going to be, again, this is Christmas morning for conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm not a black or white kind of guy. I'm not like oh, they should totally release them or not release them. I'm saying that there needs to be a structured way of doing it to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks, and that
Right.
the people that, if they did commit something heinous, then absolutely they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law and to save the victims and all that. But also, I don't want anybody getting swept under the rug with all this stuff, throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, I think America is going to get what it asked for, but I don't think it's necessarily going to want what it gets here. But it's certainly going to be one of your lead stories for 2025 going into 2026 for certain.
Hey, thanks for spending some time with us this afternoon. Thanks for joining us again. That's Jeremy Rosenthal from TexasDefenseFirm.com, joining us on News Talk 710 KURV.